Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar session today. We're grateful you could join us. We're going to give people just another minute or so to jump on, and then we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Thank you again for joining us. We're glad to have you on with us today. As you can see on the screen, we're going to be going through introduction to GitLab. So looking forward to going through that content with all of you. Before we do, just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items. First off, this webinar is being recorded. So you'll be receiving that recording here in the next day or so. So you can look for that in your inboxes. Additionally, if you have any questions that come up throughout the session, please feel free to put those in the Q&A portion of your Zoom window, and we will be able to answer those as we go throughout the session today, and we'll have a little bit of time at the end for Chris to answer some questions as well. And with that, I will hand it over to Chris, who is a customer success engineer in our customer success team. Looking forward to hearing from him today.
Perfect. Thanks for that intro, Taylor. So like Taylor mentioned, hello, everybody. My name is Chris Guitarte. I'm a customer success engineer here at GitLab, and today I'll be focusing on the basics of GitLab in this introductory webinar. And in today's webinar, I'll be covering some foundational concepts and usage of GitLab, primarily focusing on how things are organized, some key terminology that you'll find useful as you get more familiar with the GitLab DevOps platform, how to navigate the UI, and the fundamentals for tracking work. Secondly, we'll also go through the recommended GitLab flow for a feature branch development workflow. This is key to utilizing all the features in the GitLab DevOps platform. So we'll want to make sure that we tackle that. And then just to let you know, we do have some upcoming webinars that we'll be presenting into the future. That include Intro to CI/CD, Advanced CI/CD, as well as DevSecOps and Compliance. So if you're looking to learn more around GitLab pipelines after today's webinar, please keep an eye out on the Customer Success webinar calendar, where we have links to register for all of these webinars that I just mentioned. All right. So before we jump into some more of the details here, I want to give you an overview of GitLab. And GitLab is the first and only true DevOps platform. It's a single application with one user interface, a unified data store, one permission model, and security embedded within the DevOps lifecycle. In a single application, it combines the ability to plan your projects, develop your projects, secure them, and release, as well as operate and monitor your software within a single application that's easier to use and maintain with complete visibility and traceability across your DevOps lifecycle. With GitLab as a partner, every team in your organization can collaborate in a single solution to manage the end-to-end development lifecycle, delivering more value faster, increasing visibility, quality, and security, while removing context switching and non-value generating tasks. So this is just a good overview of all the kind of capabilities that you can get within GitLab as the one DevOps platform as a single application. So you might ask, why do so many organizations use GitLab and what problem is it solving? And really here, we're helping teams move from sequential DevOps, which is on the left-hand side here, to concurrent DevSecOps, which is implemented by leveraging all of the features within GitLab. So the reality is that even though some or all teams may adopt DevOps in the form of tools, processes, and culture, you often find those teams optimizing those tools or processes locally and still work sequentially, handing work from one team to another. And what this does, it limits organizations from truly realizing the value of DevOps, where teams really need to work together and have a single conversation, starting from the inception of an idea and bringing that all the way to production around smaller deliverables. And in a traditional sequential DevOps approach, each function is running in silos, reusing their own tools that they've selected. And again, that might be locally optimized, but that creates a lot of handoff and tool friction as every team hands over to the next team. So with GitLab, organizations are wanting to move faster and more efficiently. And so they've adopted the GitLab concurrent DevSecOps model. And with this approach, it offers a way to get teams to work together at the same time and collaborate in a single pane of glass to design, build, test, deliver, and monitor code changes. Teams must work concurrently in the concurrent DevSecOps process and not sequentially on the product or service that they're going to deliver to your customers or your clients. And at the same time, you'll move security left so that vulnerabilities are caught earlier in the software development cycle, preventing issues or any vulnerabilities from reaching production, which would create issues for your own clients or customers. So with the concurrent DevSecOps model, I want to take you through our recommended process in utilizing GitLab in a concurrent way. So now that I've given that overview, it's time to dig right into our recommended workflow across all the stages in GitLab. So as you can see in this infographic, there's many steps to get to from an idea to a solution deployed to production. And this graphic shows the GitLab flow process. This process can apply to anything from fixing a bug, creating a new feature, or remediating a security vulnerability. So these two lines here represent, so this line here and then this line up here represent two branches, with all work being done on the feature branch. So as you, organize your work through epics and milestones and issues, and then assign an issue to a developer, that developer will create a merge request and create a new feature branch. And on that feature branch, they'll start to push that code that will either create a new feature, fix that bug, or remediate a security vulnerability that's been found in your software. And once that code is committed and pushed to that feature branch on GitLab, it goes through that automated build and test process, and it's scanned for security vulnerabilities. And finally, once the automated build and test process and security scanning has completed, you'll get all those results contained in the merge request within GitLab. And from there, your team can collaborate with, or the developer can collaborate with other members of the team who have the ability to approve or provide code review for that developer and recommend any additional changes that need to be made. So that those changes that need to be made are then pushed back to that feature branch. And then once that feature branch has that code pushed to the GitLab repository again, it goes through that same automated build and test process and security scanning, and finally reaches the collaboration review again. Once everything's passed and everything's approved, it can then be deployed. So merge is accepted. So it's merged, that feature branch is merged back into the main deployment branch. It's released and deployed to your production environment. Along the way, you can utilize things like the review app functionality. We don't go through that today here in today's webinar, but if you're interested in the review app functionality, we'll touch on that within our intro to CI/CD as well as advanced CI/CD webinars. So keep an eye out on those if you want to take advantage of some more of the advanced functionality within the pipelines. But really, this is our recommended process for moving work across a feature branch and then merging it back into your main deployment branch. So while Git, allows a wide variety of branching strategies and workflows, many organizations end up with workflows that are too complicated and not clearly defined or not integrated with issue tracking systems. So if you're utilizing GitLab Flow, you're following our clearly defined set of best practices. So what that does, it combines the feature-driven development and feature branches with issue tracking. So everything begins with an issue to track the work that needs to be done, whether it's a bug, a new feature, or a security vulnerability that needs to be remediated. And then the feature branch basically is where all of your developers are going to be collaborating and submitting the changes within a merge request. So this allows a simplified branching strategy. All features and fixes first go to the main branch. And if you want, it does also allow for production or stable branches. And if there's any issues, bug fixes or hotfix patches can be cherry picked from the main branch as well. So we do recommend DevOps teams to follow the GitLab flow process while using GitLab capabilities in this concurrent development lifecycle. And as a reminder, the GitLab application is really based around a feature branch-based workflow. So all developers will work within a single project and create feature branches in that same project. And in the merge request, that becomes the core and primary collaboration tool of the product to allow you to push the code to that feature branch, perform your automated build and test process, do your security scanning, and do your collaboration and code review, which can then be approved and merged back into the main branch. So the gray line at the bottom shows the main branch here. And this other gray line here is the feature branch that goes back into the main branch. All right. So next up, we want to go through some of the terminology that you'll commonly encounter when utilizing GitLab for your current DevSecOps process. So these are all the components within GitLab. These are all the terminology that you would use to, say, for example, define a project, which is the core building block where work is organized, managed, tracked, and delivered to help the team collaborate and plan work in the form of issues. So all of your issues are found in GitLab projects. If you're using other DevOps tools, a project could also be known as a repository. And then a project is part of a group. So a group is a collection of projects and subgroups. So you can think of them like folders. Other DevOps tools, it's known as a project, but the way we organize projects here at GitLab are within groups or subgroups. Next up, we have the issue. A issue is essentially part of a project, as I mentioned. It's the fundamental planning object where your team will document the use case of a specific feature and the title and the description. And in the description, you would discuss the approach, estimate the size and effort of that work that needs to be done using the issue weight, and actually tracking the time spent for completing that issue. You can assign issues to any number of individuals on the team. It could be one individual or multiple individuals. And that's really where you're going to be tracking the progress for the work that needs to be completed. Next, we have the epic. So an epic is a collection of related issues. So it's it'll be created at the group level. And for any issues that may contribute to a larger initiative, you may want to organize them in an epic in GitLab. And so you can organize these by theme, whether that's related to an initiative for the current quarter or a specific capability focusing on, say, like the user experience or backend functionality. You can have an epic that would help you organize all those issues that relate to one another, and that would help you achieve that particular goal that's outlined in the epic. Next, we have the merge request. So as we mentioned in the previous slide here on the recommended process, The merge request is essentially your primary collaboration tool where feature branches are associated there and where developers are primarily doing their work and collaborating with the team to have them review and have them approve the work once it's completed. So this captures, the merge request can capture the design that's being changed, any implementation details, so code changes within the software itself, discussions within specific lines of code or just generally discussions around the changes that are being made, the approval process, as well as the testing, the automated build and testing that happens, as well as the security scans. In other tools, this may be known as a pull request, but here in GitLab, it's called a merge request. Next, we have the GitLab label, and labels are a way for you to tag and track your work for projects and groups and associate different issues with different initiatives. It may also help you prioritize different things, so you can create labels that correspond to different priorities that you want to assign to your issues, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, priority 4. So those labels can help you organize what's important to you and to your team. Boards. These boards are a visual listing of projects and issues that are useful for teams to manage their backlog of work, helping you prioritize items and move issues to the team or specific stage in the project. So we'll go through this a little bit later in the slides here, where I can demonstrate to you how to utilize boards to really help you organize the backlog of work or help you apply labels automatically. Next, we have the milestone and iteration. Milestone iterations are used to track a sprint or a specific deliverable, and it helps you organize your code, issues, and merge requests into a cohesive group. For example, we use the milestone feature at GitLab to track our monthly releases that happen on the 22nd of each month. And so if you look at the GitLab project, which we'll go through in the few slides here, you can see that there's milestones that are created for every GitLab release that's being created. So the major minor release of, say, 15.5 has a milestone of 15.5. And so all the issues and epics that are targeted for that specific release are assigned to the 15.5 milestone, for example. And then if you want to kind of track your work in smaller time periods, like your sprints, you would utilize the iteration component of GitLab. And finally, we have the roadmap component of GitLab, which is essentially just a visual representation of the various epics for your group in a nice, easy to read format with a timeline showing the start and end date of those epics and how everything is lining up based on the starting and end dates for your epics. So I just wanted to go through all of these different terminology, different terms, different GitLab components, because we'll be referring to all of these throughout today's webinar. Next, we'll be discussing the GitLab hierarchy. So as I mentioned, GitLab projects are housed within groups. So you can see here, there's a top level group, and then you have a project right underneath that. But groups can also have any number of subgroups to help you better organize your projects based on teams within your organization or different parts of your software applications that you're building. So for example, you may have a top level group for your company or organization, but you may have subgroups to split up your projects based on the type of work that they're doing. So if they're doing mobile applications, you may have a subgroup for mobile applications. You may even split that out even further to have subgroups for your iOS team and your Android team, for example. And then you may have another subgroup for your backend team and your front end team, and then the different projects that are associated with those teams. And so with how things are organized, when you add team members to, say, a top level group, permissions are actually inherited from the top level group. So if you were to add all of your team members to the top level group, you'll want to operate with the concept of least privilege. So giving those team members the least, the specific role that provides them with the least amount of privilege or least amount of permissions to operate within these subgroups and sub-projects, and then essentially assign those team members higher permissions at the subgroup or project level if you want to have your entire team added at the top level group. Labels and milestones created at the top group level are available to all of your subgroups and projects. So to kind of better help you organize your work, you may think about creating all of the labels and milestones that your groups may want to leverage at the top level group. So that way you don't need to recreate them individually at specific projects or even specific subgroups. They can all be inherited from the top level group. Next, as we kind of showed you in the GitLab flow slide a few slides ago, we took you through an example workflow of a feature branch and all the work that's being done within GitLab. But in this example, we'll show you really more specifically through all the way from creating and discussing a new issue and deploying to production more granularly. So in the first step, the team creates and discusses a new issue. A team member creates an issue inside GitLab for a new feature that they'll be implementing. The team member applies the label discussion to the issue, and various team members discuss the new feature by entering comments into the issue. The issue will now appear on the project's issue board in the discussion list, and other labels for this project could include backend, front end, working on, staging, ready, and production. Then we move on to the code creation. So the backend team starts working on the issue and changes the label to backend to reflect the status. The assigned developer starts writing the code and assigns the issue to themselves and changes the label to working on. Next comes the commit and merge request. So the developer creates commits, and the developer pushes their commits to a feature branch, and the developer creates a merge request. Then the backend team removes the backend and working on labels and adds the label front end. That then generates the next stage here, deploying to staging environment, where the front end developer starts working on the issue, adding the label working on and assigning the issue to themselves. And after the code review is complete, the code is deployed to the staging environment, and the team removes the labels and adds the staging label. So after the successful implementation of the application in the staging environment, the team removes the staging label and adds the label ready. So once it's in the ready stage, other teams prepare the technical documentation and the marketing campaign, each adding their labels docs and marketing. And as each team is done, they remove their labels. And the last team that's done removes the ready label and adds the production label. And then that means we're ready to move to production. So with the move to production, the release team member merges the merge request and the feature is deployed to the production environment. And the release team member closes the issue. So as you can see here in this workflow example, you can see how we've leveraged labels to move an issue from its inception across the development process and the testing process on the staging environment. And then finally, after all of the team members, even on the business and marketing side, have completed their work, they've removed their labels, and then the release team recognizes that this work is done and can then deploy the feature to the production environment. So what does this all look like in GitLab? We've kind of gone through this at a higher level. I want to take you through some screens here in GitLab to show you how it all works within the GitLab user interface. So here you can see we're in a top level group. So I've taken a screenshot here of the top level group gitlab.org on gitlab.com. And you can see all the subgroups and projects underneath this group. Groups within this top level group have the 3 dots icon here. So with the 5-minute production app, this is a subgroup. And then projects have this book icon here. So within the build subgroup, you have the CNG project. So on the left here, you can see all the areas you can navigate to within this group. So you can get more information about the group. You can view all the epics within the group. You can view all the issues that have been created in the group. So all the issues that have been created in the different projects in subgroups or even projects directly underneath the GitLab.org group. You have all the merge requests that have been created in all those different projects as well as some dashboard, your security and compliance dashboards, your packages and registries, analytics, and the wiki. The next we'll go and talk about group epics. So when you go to a specific group, so in this example, we're going to the distribution subgroup underneath gitlab.org, and we go to the epics list. You can see all the different epics that have been created at this subgroup level. So an epic, as you might remember, it's a collection of related issues across different groups and projects to help you organize by a specific theme. So as you can see here, you could search for epics using specific keywords or specifying a specific label. So here I'm looking for all epics that are not confidential with a label of priority 3. And once I've entered in that search query, I've filtered it down to the sources for external dependencies epic, as well as follow-up for dependencies.io integration epic. Next, if we were to drill into an individual epic from an epics list, you could see some of the details here. So an epic, it could be a portfolio initiative or investment, a specific capability or feature, or just a large story. You want to utilize an epic to capture its description or business case here in the description field, and any data or that's pertinent to describe this large body of work that needs to be completed. So here we've got the license compliance category vision epic. So in an epic, you've got a title and then a body or description that uses Markdown for you to kind of format with a bulleted list, different sections. And in an epic, you could also set a manual start and end date. And this is useful to have you kind of map your epics in the roadmap view. Additionally, you can apply different labels to help you organize your epics. As I mentioned, you can create those labels at the top level group, and those labels can then be available to your subgroups and to the epics and issues that need to be organized. So here we've organized this epic under the DevOps secure scope label and some other labels here as well. And you can actually click these labels to view a list of all epics or all everything that is captured within that label in a list. So here, as we scroll down on the epic page, you can see a section where we break down a large epic into discrete logical pieces for individual and independent tracking with child epics and issues. So you can see here, these are all hierarchical and dynamic, so you can expand and collapse these different carrots for the sub child epics. And then you can start to see any nested child epics within the epic itself. And then finally the issues as well. So you can see that epics are designated by a stack of papers. For example, this license compliance, moving from minimal to viable. And in there, you've got another sub child epic called replace license finder, license approval policies. But you also have just a single issue that's contributing to this larger initiative to move from minimal to viable maturity for license compliance, adding the Yarn ASDF plugin to license scanning. So some of these features are only available in the Ultimate tier of GitLab. So child epics are only available in Ultimate. If you're a premium customer, then you'll only be able to see issues that are directly linked to the epic, but not necessarily creating child epics that are nested within an epic. And then you may also see that we've got a health status as well. So these green, yellow, and red numbers at the top of an epic up here, as well as individually within child epics, those designate how many issues that are on track, need attention, or at risk. So you can mark individually those issues that are on track, need attention, or at risk. And that way they can bubble up in this easy to read health status, which is an ultimate only feature. Next, if we want to view a list of all the issues within a group, we'll click on the issues list menu item here on the left-hand side. So again, we're still in the distribution subgroup, and this is a list of all issues within the distribution subgroup. So all the issues belong to individual projects. This view shows all the issues in all of the projects under this group. So similar to the Epic view, this list can be filtered by keyword or by relevant metadata, such as the author, assignee, milestone, or label. And you can see information about each issue in the list, including the labels, the assignees. So you can see the assignees here on the right-hand side with their avatar, the weight, associated merge requests, comments, and more. So labels are really a good way to really organize your issues and help you filter down these lists. So they're infinitely flexible and really can be used to identify the type of issue that you're working on, whether it's a bug, the relative priority of the issue, the product grouping that it falls under, or if it's related to user experience. So with the search bar here on the issues list, this shows an example of doing a search using both a label and a milestone to filter this list to all DevOps plan issues in GitLab.org that are targeted for the 15.6 release, which is utilizing our milestone feature in GitLab. So these different search filters can be combined with other search parameters, including who the author is, who the assignee is, and specific keyword searches as well to find any text that's within the description or title, for example. So as you add additional search parameters or adjust the sorting, the URL in your browser will actually be updated with the appropriate query string parameters. So you can actually save the same exact query and bookmark it, or share that same query with someone else by copying and pasting into a Slack message, an email, or even adding to another GitLab issue to get folks to the right list of issues that's filtered by a specific label or milestone, for example. Next, we'll want to show you a little bit more around how to define your user stories using issues. So this screen here shows the details of a given issue with the title and description, as well as all of the metadata on the right. So you can see as I'm scrolling here, you can see all the different metadata here. But we'll start here at the top of the issue, right above the headline or the title. You could see the status of the issue, whether it's open or closed, when the issue was created. So this is kind of like a relative date, but if you hover over it, you can actually see the exact date and time, who the original author of the issue is, and then their specific role in the project. And then you have your title, and then you have the description of the issue. And in the description of the issue, just like the epics, you can use Markdown to format your text, create sections, ordered and unordered lists, even checklists that can track the tasks that are needed for the issue to be closed. I do want to go over some key points from the highlighted area that's scrolling here that contains all the metadata. It starts with some of the assignees. So whoever is assigned to work on the issue is at the very top. You also have the epic that the issue belongs to. You have all the different labels that are dynamic and clickable from there. You can edit them as well to add additional labels. You can see the milestone that the issue belongs to. So in GitLab's case, this is what we're using to track what issues are assigned to a specific release of GitLab that we're wanting it to be included on. The iteration that the issue belongs to. So if you're tracking the work specifically in a specific sprint, that specific time, say a 2-week sprint, you'll see that assigned there. The issue weight, which is an integer to show the relative difficulty for completing this issue. So it's up to whoever is creating this issue to basically assign a weight. And with that weight, you could see that added up for all issues in a list on issue boards or on the milestone page as that total sum of issue weights. And so it really kind of represents that relative difficulty, and you can use that to kind of see how much, how many complicated issues are still remaining in your backlog, for example, or how many complicated issues have been completed. So these are all whole positive numbers that you'd be assigning in the issue weight. And some common patterns that you would utilize for the issue weight are the Fibonacci sequence, or whole numbers that you've kind of aligned to t-shirt sizes that you might have used in previous DevOps tools. So if you're using small, medium, large, for example, you may have, say, like a weight of 1 for small, 3 to medium, and 5 for large, for example. You also have the due date, as well as some time tracking. So with time tracking, you can see the estimated time that's needed to complete the issue and how much time was spent so far. And to enter and remove that time tracking data, you have to use what we call quick actions. So these are essentially slash commands that you would add in as a comment on the issue, and you would have them all on their own lines. And you could essentially set the time estimate, so estimated time that would be needed to complete the issue, as well as capturing any time that's spent within the issue, as you work on it. And then finally, as I mentioned before, with the health status feature on the epics that's kind of bubbled up to the epics view, you can assign the health status, which is on track, needs attention, and at risk. It's here. So we actually wanted to I wanted to show you how to collaborate and track development of a user story. One second here. Let me go ahead and go to an issue, or an issue here that I can show you within GitLab that shows you how you can collaborate and track development of a user story. So you could see here some merge requests here. Let me go ahead and pull up a project here and show you an issue. And on this issue, you can go ahead and see comments from various team members. So if I were to write a comment here, you could collaborate by mentioning what work that you're doing. And as I mentioned with the time tracking, you can set an estimate for how long this would work, how long this issue would take. So you could set your estimate here for, say, 1 hour, hit a comment, and that'll set the time estimate to 1 hour. And then as you work, you can mention other folks. Let's see here. Not sure why that's not showing up here. With each comment, you can mention different folks here, and you could have threaded conversations and mention other users to bring their attention. And when you mention somebody else, that will send them an email notification and request action on an issue. So you may ask somebody to, you may provide some feedback to someone, or ask them for their thoughts. And each issue or comment can be reacted to via an emoji. So, rather than kind of writing out a whole response, you can click this button here and give a thumbs up or a +1, as well as the issue itself could have emoji reactions as well. So we use this at GitLab to track support from our team members and community members and our customers on issues that have the most upvotes or thumbs up to help influence our product prioritization. So that's just one example of how you can collaborate and track development of a user story in GitLab. go back to the slides here. So you can see here just how we can do that here. I'm just scrolling down on the page. You can see some of the app mentions on an existing GitLab issue. So that's how that will work. And I was just showing you a little bit more of how to do that directly on a GitLab issue. All right. And so with the group discussion, you can see here on the left-hand side, you've got your related issues. So on an issue, you can link to other issues that are within your project. Say if that issue is blocked by another issue, that way you can clearly see the relationship between issues. You also have the ability just to show all those related issues, as well as related merge requests. So any work that's being done that's contributing to the completion of that issue, you'll see that in the list there of related merge requests. And then on the right-hand side here, these are all the discussions that are happening within the issue. So comments that are happening, conversations that relate to the work that's being done to achieve that common goal, the app mentions that send those notification emails, and yeah. So with group boards, I want to be able to show you how to visualize and organize your issues. So boards can be filtered similar to an issue list. You can have columns in the boards based on labels and milestones and assignees and more. So here you can see that we've got different lists within an issue board that's assigned to the scope label priority critical and priority high. And as you move issues, dragging and dropping issues between one list to another, you're automatically assigning that label to that issue. So it's an easy way for you to triage and move your issues across a specific workflow that you've defined through your labels. And up here you have a drop-down menu where you can create multiple boards and select different boards for you to kind of switch between those different workflows. So you could have a workflow for your triage of defining priority. Your development teams may have your boards for moving an issue from one step to another in the development process. So really this board is created at the group level and shows issues within all projects underneath this group. And so it's an easy way to organize all those issues and assign those labels automatically as you move them from different issue lists on this board. Next, I want to go ahead and take you through a tour of the merge requests. So with merge requests, you get a complete view of all aspects of the change being made to the code base. You can see the latest pipeline progress, and you can review and approve the changes. You can review the security scan results all in one place. Additionally, GitLab makes it easy to start and track progress of a code review. You can add general comments to start a review within the merge request itself, similar to an issue, or you can add comments on individual lines of code if there's a specific suggestion that you want to make on a specific line of code. So with GitLab CI/CD, as I mentioned, we're only going to touch on this briefly, but for more kind of information around GitLab CI/CD, as well as all the features and capabilities there, I invite you to register for our upcoming webinars, an intro to CI/CD, as well as advanced CI/CD in GitLab. But at its core, CI/CD in GitLab is defined as continuous integration and continuous delivery or deployment. And GitLab CI/CD allows for built-in automated builds and tests to be run on your code as you make those changes. So as we mentioned in that GitLab flow, as you create those feature branches, you're going to be triggering the GitLab CI/CD pipeline to create those automated builds and testing your software and scanning for any security vulnerabilities as you make those changes. And with GitLab CI/CD, you're encouraging collaboration across all departments in that merge request and making code creation and management easy, as well as providing the following specific benefits that I've outlined here. So with CI, continuous integration, It allows you for early error detection, reduced integration problems, and increasing your team speed and efficiency, and continuous delivery deployment. It allows your team to deliver value more quickly and more often, ensuring every change is releasable to your production environment. So what you're looking at here is the full pipeline graph of all the jobs in a GitLab CI/CD pipeline. So the build process, the test process, anything that you've created within a staging process, and if you've got canary builds, you've got your canary stage as well as, and then finally your production stage. So with labels, as I mentioned, you can create labels at the group level. This can be filtered by a keyword to find specific more relevant labels at the group level. So as you create more labels over time, it can get a little unwieldy to go through the entire labels list. So you can use the search functionality to find the specific labels that you want to edit or view all the issues that are related to them. So in this example, I've done a search for all priority labels in the GitLab.org group. And these are using all of the scope label feature, which basically creates a name value pair for your labels. So the name is priority and the value is 1. So that way, when you apply these labels to an issue or an epic, only one of these labels can be applied at a time. So you can only have an issue or an epic with priority 1 label. And if, say, the priority changes for that issue or epic, and you apply the priority 2 label, that priority 1 label will automatically be removed and priority 2 would be applied. So again, you can create those different labels for lots of different purposes, and they can be applied to epics, issues, and merge requests. Milestones are a way to group issues and merge requests together in a block of time. Milestones have a defined starting and end time, and it can include any number of issues and merge requests. So here, you can see all the milestones for GitLab.org and the GitLab project, and any milestones created for those projects in the group. For the most part, all of these are milestones that are created for the group. And so we want to make sure that any of these subgroups or projects within GitLab.org can utilize these milestones. So we've got, again, as I mentioned here at GitLab, we've aligned our monthly releases to a milestone. So we've got 15.1 and 15.2, for example. And so when you look at these milestones in this milestones listing page, you get a summary view of the number of issues and merge requests in the milestone and how far along that milestone is. So you can drill into these to see a burn down and burn up chart associated with the milestone. So some navigation tips to help you get around in GitLab. So there's lots of ways to navigate in GitLab. On the left-hand side, you could easily switch to view different types of data within the group or project that you're currently viewing. And at the top, you have breadcrumbs that show you where you are in the group and project hierarchy. At the very top, you can see that whenever you change views in GitLab, the URL actually changes as well. So you can bookmark or share the URL to the exact viewer that you're currently on if you're viewing a subgroup, for example, or as I mentioned to you before, in viewing a list of issues or epics, as you change those filters, that URL will change as well. So let's navigate back to the group. We'll go ahead and click the top level group or the subgroup that we were in, and then going back to the top level group using the breadcrumb. And then from the group page, we can actually create a new project by clicking the Create Project button. And then from there, we have options to create a blank project, import a new project, or create one from a template. All right, so that concludes all of the different capabilities that I wanted to kind of share with you in today's introduction to GitLab. I also wanted to kind of share with you some additional key trainings for teams that are getting started with GitLab. So we do have a professional services team here at GitLab. We have several trainings to offer you for any team that's getting started. So each training allows for up to 12 students from your organization. And to see our current pricing, please visit our catalog page that's linked here below, and we'll share this with you after the webinar. And just to kind of recap some of the concepts or topics that we'll be covering in all these trainings, we have the GitLab with Git Basics training, which covers what GitLab does, why DevOps teams use it, and how it works with Git. We cover key processes and tasks for teams of working on GitLab, such as committing changes, creating branches and merge requests, using a CI/CD pipeline, and accessing security scanning. And this also includes access to the GitLab certified associate assessments. Next, if you have project managers that need to get up to speed with GitLab, we have the training for them as well. Shows them how to set up projects by creating issues, labels, and milestones in groups, and approaches, and it shares approaches for managing projects using GitLab boards, epics, and roadmaps, as well as best practices for using GitLab to develop portfolio plans. And if you need more comprehensive training, the GitLab DevOps Fundamentals training is the most comprehensive. It covers all the key features and capabilities for each stage in the GitLab DevOps lifecycle through 4 courses. And finally, if you need training as well as migration assistance, our Migration Plus package provides source code migration from a single source system and adds 3 standard education services to help your users and administrators level up quickly on the GitLab application and workflows. So if you need just the migration services and not the training, we also offer that as well. And you might consider professional services-led migration if you're moving hundreds or thousands of repos into GitLab, or you're moving from a self-managed GitLab instance to our SaaS offering just to maintain some data integrity. We can share additional benefits documented in our handbook in the documentation after the call. So again, I appreciate your time here. We've got a little bit of extra time here just to tackle some Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I also just opened up a feedback poll. So would love to get your feedback from today's session. Just a couple of quick questions there, should only take a minute or so. And with that, we will jump into some questions. We have had a few come in, so I'll just kind of go through those in the few minutes we have left here. First question, I'm a self-managed user of GitLab and started creating projects in different top-level groups. Is there a way for me to add projects to different top-level group epics?
Great question. So as I mentioned before, with the GitLab hierarchy, you essentially want to have, a single top-level group and subgroups within them to organize all of your projects and issues. And so if you've started creating different projects and different top-level groups, you've kind of broken that hierarchy that a top-level group is aware of. So if you were to create an epic at that top-level group, and you want to add related issues to that epic, those issues need to be from projects in that same hierarchy. So that project needs to actually live underneath like a single top-level group. Fortunately, we do have a capability or a process to transfer projects from one group to another. I can share some documentation to help you consolidate, but I can also give you a brief demo here in a sandbox environment that I have here. So if I wanted to move, say, this GitOps project or GitLab coffee shop project that's in this administrator namespace on my self-managed instance, I can just go to settings, search for transfer, scroll down here, and there's a transfer project section here. You can select the new namespace, which is essentially a top-level group that we can move it to. We can select this top-level group and hit transfer project. And it'll ask for our confirmation, and it's just as simple as doing that. But one thing to keep in mind is that this is something that you want to be really careful with, because the repository paths will change and a redirect will be in place, but it'll only be in place temporarily. So if you've got active development going on, you want to make sure that you've notified your users to update the repository path. And if you've got robust CI/CD pipelines, you want to make sure that you've updated any references to the old path to the new path.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's another one that just came through. Is it possible to create a template for an epic description?
Another good question. So I get this often when I'm meeting with customers who want to kind of standardize on how their epics are being created. Unfortunately, no, we don't have the ability to create a template for an epic description. We do have an open issue tracking this feature request. But as a workaround, you can create an issue template that you can utilize for creating new issues, but maybe call it an epic template for your issues. So that way, when you create a new issue using that template, you can then promote that issue to an epic that's leveraging a lot of the epic template defaults for, say, assigning specific labels or a default description that includes placeholder text for adding new checklists or description and different fields that you want to capture.
Great. Last question I'm seeing here, and then we can wrap up. What is the minimum role required to provide a user with read-only access to a private project's repository? Can I customize roles specific to my business's needs?
Another good question. So tackle the first part of the question first. So the minimum role that you want to provide your users with read-only access to your private projects repository is the reporter role. So I can share with you actually here, I can bring up the permissions matrix page. So in our GitLab documentation, you can do a search for certain keywords to kind of help you drill down on the specific actions here. So everything's kind of in a table format. And if you're looking on the action to view project code, you can do a search on the page here and you can find exactly what roles can be assigned to a user. So that way they can view project code. There's a 1 here next to the guest role because the guest role, if you assign that to a user, the guest role is only available to our ultimate tier customers. But if you assign that to a user, they could still only view project code on public projects, but not necessarily your private projects. So if you need them to view your private project code, you still want them to utilize that reporter role. And if there's any other capabilities that you're looking at leveraging to assign different roles and permissions to your users, utilize this permissions matrix. And I think the second part of that question is that, is there a way to kind of customize these roles based on your business's needs? Right now, we have that in a roadmap. It's not a capability that we're offering to our customers today. So you do want to make sure that you're leveraging the owner, maintainer, developer, reporter, and guest roles to delegate and assign permissions to all of your team members assigned to your groups and projects. So just operating with the concept of least privilege, assigning your team members would say like the reporter role, and then elevating their access if they need to actually create new branches, so giving them the developer role, and then if they need to do any additional work that's elevated from there, consider giving them the maintainer role from that.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy days to learn GitLab with us. And with that, we'll wrap up today. And like we mentioned at the beginning, you can expect to see the recording here the next day or so. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.